right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's LinkedIn Live event. I'm Britt Wanstroth. I'm the manager of workplace mental health at NAMI, the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, and I will be your moderator for this session. So today I am thrilled to be joined by two incredible leaders in the mental health and workplace inclusion space, Barb Solish, NAMI's National Director in the Office of Innovation, and Haley Edwards, the co-lead of OLLI's Mental Health Advisory Committee. OLLI has been partnering with your moderator for this session. So today for a few years, and they've been doing some fantastic work to support employee wellness, which I'm excited to talk about today. So through OLLI's support of NAMI's mental health workplace wellness initiative, called NAMI Stigma Free, NAMI has been able to conduct yearly surveys of the American workforce to better understand what challenges and barriers employees are facing in accessing mental health support. And we can use this data to provide guidance to organizations looking to build mental well-being into their company cultures and also learn how NAMI can best serve workers in diverse industries. So to begin with, our CEO, Dan Gillison, always says, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. So I would love to start off this conversation with why we are talking about workplace mental health right now. So we'll start with Barb. I would love to hear a little bit about your connection with NAMI and why workplace mental health is important to you.
Thanks, Brett. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we preview our 2025 Workplace Mental Health Goal. Very exciting. So I came to NAMI like so many do, with my own lived experience with a mental health condition and after losing a friend to severe mental illness. It is an incredible organization, and I am so grateful to work here. I am particularly passionate about workplace mental health because one of our mottos at NAMI is that we need to meet people where they are, and we're better of a place to do that than at work, where we are most of our day. I also know firsthand how a workplace culture can either really support mental health or not. So I'd like to share a story of my own. Early on in my career, I started a new job. I loved the work. I loved my boss. I looked up to them, and she mentored me. So one day she shared she was going to a doctor's appointment. She had an autoimmune disease and that she often would have to leave the office for them, for doctor's appointments. So I felt super comfortable with her, and I said, oh, I actually have bipolar disorder, and that means I also have pretty regular appointments, but I will always let you know in advance and make sure work is covered. So she looked at me and she said, oh no, you're not going to go all crazy on us, are you? I'm not really stung. Not only was I hurt, I was scared of what it meant for my career. So I stretched out those doctor's appointments and therapy appointments. I did not take care of myself. And ultimately, I burned out. I burned out of that job and I quit. So not only was this culture bad for my mental health, it was bad for the office too, because as anyone who does HR or leadership knows, turnover is very expensive. So here I am now. I'm hoping to make sure no employee ever feels discriminated against for their mental health. And I believe that NAMI Stigma Free initiative does just that.
Barb, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's really important for everyone to hear those lived experiences of the people that are doing this work, so that everyone can understand that where we're coming from is the place that you're coming from. It's that same sort of place of passion and care that we experience ourselves. And Haley, I would love to hear, if you wouldn't mind sharing what led you to seek out a leadership role in OLLI's Mental Health Advisory Committee.
Yeah, of course. And thanks again, Barb, for sharing that. I think that's actually really inspiring, and I relate to that a lot when I think about my career too. I first and foremost want to start off by saying I feel really lucky and privileged to work for an organization like OLLI who, really does prioritize mental health. I think when I was interviewing for this role, I don't think I understood the extent of what we offered and what it actually meant until I was here and I saw it firsthand. And it truly has been like an organization that I feel is going to be hard to leave at some, if that ever happens, because it's something that is so important to me. And, going back to the Mental Health Advisory Committee, I joined it initially, because of that reason. I'm super passionate about mental health. I too struggle with anxiety, and it has been, so hard to navigate throughout all of my, career. And, I have had those jobs similar to you, Barb, where I maybe had a really great boss, but then other leadership members weren't very supportive or didn't understand me, or I couldn't, be my true self. And so with this committee, I really just wanted to be a part of it, to make that change within OLLI, to really push forward our social mission efforts and share my perspective, share my point of view, and then also be that person for someone who maybe isn't comfortable sharing their point of view, because I was in that position, years and years ago.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Haley. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how you started OLLI's Mental Health Advisory Committee. What went into that and what it looks like today.
Yeah, of course. So the committee was created to really, again, be an extension of our social mission efforts. We're really looking to push forward, all of those efforts, and kind of be this group of people that, truck forward. In terms of surveys, we do 2 mental health surveys a year. We do a mental health survey in October that is basically to create an action plan. And then we have a pulse survey in May that really checks in on that action plan. We also are in our third year of an annual survey with Mindshare Partners. So that's more of to track the trends within the workplace that are related to mental health, and how do we improve mental health over time as, an organization. So coming out of those surveys, we as a committee landed on 3 key pillars to focus on. We have sustainable workload, which is, how do we make workloads more manageable for OLLIs? We have effective collaboration, which is essentially, how do we work more effectively and efficiently with our, cross collaborators or within our department. And then lastly, which was the pillar I was most involved with, is elevated well-being. That is, how do we make sure OLLIs are recognized and appreciated and supported within the organization? And so just to round out that question, this committee meets monthly. It's not just myself and the other co-lead. We have, I think, about 12 members. We discuss feedback. We discuss what are people talking about, at the office, or what are people talking about within meetings, and we share kind of what's being talked about within the whole company. We also are updating the company on our progress. So we recently landed on some things to focus on within those 3 pillars. For instance, with elevated well-being, we are going to implement a random acts of kindness program. So this is something to kind of, praise your peer or praise a colleague, or even, up and down the ladder, right? And even if it's like they held the door for me and they were so nice to me, just kind of extending a thank you that isn't necessarily related to work. So I'm really excited about everything that we're doing, and just want to say too that we're not even a year in with this committee. So I'm just very excited to see what we can do in the future too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, I think what you said there, it really is a part of what has made this partnership between NAMI and OLLI so special, is OLLI's interest in that data-driven mission to really listen to their employees and use that information to tailor how you respond to people's needs.
Yes.
So I mean, what you said about creating these networks, people talking to each other, I think that's a really good lead in to some of the data that we found with this 2025 survey that we just put out. So one of the stats that we found is that 77% of respondents report that they would feel comfortable if their coworker talked to them about their mental health. So that's fantastic. A lot of people feel like they are really ready to support their coworkers on and having these mental health conversations. But the interesting thing is that nearly half of employees said that they were worried about being judged if they share their mental health struggles with their colleagues. So that's very interesting to us because we're hearing from people that they want to have these conversations, that they want to be there to listen, but that maybe there's some self-stigma that's keeping them from being the one to open that door first. So Barb, I would really like for you to talk for a moment about why employers need to be concerned about the amount of stigma for mental health concerns in their workplace.
Thanks, Britt. And yeah, this data is so interesting. Just that gap of, we want to help, we want to talk about mental health. Come to me, let's talk about it. But hey, I'm not sure I'm ready. And that does show, a level of stigma. And the problem with stigma is that it stops people from seeking the help that they deserve. So when you feel stigmatized, and I've been there, you feel ashamed, you feel isolated, you're reluctant to reach out for support. And so in doing so, you hinder your recovery and often make things that are already challenging even worse. So as I shared earlier, when I felt like my mental illness was not okay with my boss and that it might affect how I would succeed in that office, my mental health suffered, like quite directly. And I'm not alone. So our poll found that nearly half of workers say they're worried about judgment, like you just mentioned, Britt. And 42% worried that their careers would be negatively affected if they talked about their mental health at work. It's a lot. So when you begin to isolate, hide, feel shame, you don't get the support you need. And that means worse outcomes for employees and individuals, but ultimately for the workplace as a whole. And I think that is something that employers really need to take a look at and support and try to reduce stigma in their workplaces.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Barb, because another stat from our poll showed that 1 in 4 employees said that they have considered quitting their jobs due to mental health concerns, and 7% did quit because of related challenges in the last year. So it's seeing these numbers of people who are thinking about leaving. As you said earlier, Barb, employee retention is very important for the success of a company. I think that one of the things that Haley said about having these conversations, having these programs like the idea of having opportunities for employees to reach out and say thank you for holding the door for me, or these random acts of kindness. I think that sounds like it's a really good strategy as a way to get people just to start talking about what they mean to each other in the workplace. So Haley, I would love to hear about some other ways that OLLI managers and leadership are creating an environment where employees actually feel comfortable initiating those conversations about their mental health.
Yeah, of course. So I think at OLLI, to start, there's a few things here, but to start, we have 4 distinct values that we lean into. So one of those is tactfully transparent. We really are a company and a culture that wants to create and encourage openness, transparency, honesty, and also to bring your true self to work. So, making sure the person that you are at home is who you show up as at work as. So, I really do truly believe we try really hard to make sure people feel comfortable, make sure people have that space to talk about some of those hard things or mental health. I personally experienced my first panic attack ever, and it was when I was traveling for work a couple of years ago, and it was horrifying. It was traumatic. I had never experienced one before, and it was on a plane. So to add to the layer of it, and honestly, I had so much support, from my team, from our people and culture team, and I was able to take a few days to recover. And I think I'm saying this is just as it's a testament to what we've built here at OLLI and how we have created this space. I don't think I would have experienced the level of support at another company. And so again, I'm super grateful. And I think we are one of the companies that is, I don't want to say like leading the way, but we are doing progressive things and we are putting, we're walking the walk. One other thing I wanted to touch on is when we hire new people, they go through mental health training so that they understand kind of like, where we're at with mental health, and also just ensuring that we build this space and normalize these conversations. And then managers go through specific training that gives them the key skills that they need to have these conversations and to also create a safe space within like their team, with their team members. So I think, again, we have all these things in place to really allow those conversations to be had, whether they are at a level with your, supervisor, or they're at a level with a colleague or someone in another department. We're really trying to make sure you have someone to talk to.
Yeah, Haley, that's fantastic. I'm glad that you felt like you were in a position where you were able to be open about the, having a panic attack, because yeah, that's a really, really scary experience. As I'm sure anybody who's ever had one can attest. And it's great that you were able to just be honest about what that was like for you and take the time you needed. I really want to touch on something else you said about trainings, because that actually was another very interesting data point that we found from our survey. We found that while more than half of respondents report that their workplace has mental health and well-being trainings, only 11% actually require employees to complete that training. So that's optional training, which, as I'm sure we all understand, in our limited work days with our limited capacity, that means that a decent number of people who have the opportunity to take this training are probably not taking it. So Barb, I would really like for you to speak a little bit about what kinds of mental health trainings are most effective, most necessary for ensuring employees get the support they need, and just what kind of training is like absolutely essential for workplaces to provide to their employees.
Thanks, Britt. So we see clearly from the data that mental health and well-being training, it's good for business. So 80% of the employees surveyed said it was important, mental health training was important to creating a positive workplace culture, which we know has a ripple effect on morale, on productivity, and more. So one other area we see opportunity in training is sort of having the mental health conversation. So we've seen 2 years in a row with this survey that people want to talk about mental health at work, but that more support would really be helpful. So, as part of the Stigma-Free Workplace Initiative, I actually get to have a lot of conversations with leaders and employees in all kinds of different companies. And I would say without fail, in every Q&A, someone asks, what do I say when I see someone struggling? What do I say if they tell me that they are? The good news is there are some really helpful strategies to have those conversations, which, by the way, we have some of those resources on the NAMI Stigma-Free website that can help. But those resources need to get out to employees of all levels. So I say all levels because we've seen 2 years in a row that employees are much more comfortable going to a friend at work, than they are going to their manager, their HR, their leadership. So everyone really needs to be prepared to have these conversations because they are going to come up, and you need to be ready and supportive, and that initial conversation is so basic but can be so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that was like a really good moment for us to see that data, because that felt like it really resonated with me, at least, knowing that, through the other jobs that I've had, like it always feels a little bit more comfortable talking to somebody who's like a colleague before you actually go to your manager, because a lot of times managers are under increased pressure to be making sure that their employees are like at their most productive, at their best. So those conversations can be, they can be uncomfortable for some people, feeling like they're potentially inviting that increased scrutiny. So I also wanted to talk about another area of training that we think would be very beneficial for a lot of employees. One thing that we always recommend whenever we talk to a partnering organization is make sure that your employees know what their benefits are. Because our survey this time showed us that about a quarter of respondents shared that they do not know whether their employer offers mental health care benefits. They don't know if they have an employee assistance program or even like flexible work arrangements or sick days for mental health. So, you know, if you think about that, that's a quarter of people don't know. Those people are probably not going to even try to access those benefits if they do find themselves struggling with their mental health. So, Haley, I would love for you to talk some about, you know, what are the other offerings that Ollie has to actually support employee mental health?
I'd love to. Yeah, this is something that, again, I think sets us apart and is a differentiator for us is all of the offerings we have. And not that I will name all of them, but the first one that I want to mention, which is, again, I think super competitive and makes us, sets us apart from other companies, is we have 12 mental health days a year. So that's one every month. And it's on a Friday, and the whole company takes that day off. This is, you know, something that I think a non-negotiable for me moving forward. Like, I use this time for myself, and that's what they encourage, right? I go thrifting, I, you know, spend time with my dog, I catch up on, you know, things that make me happy. That's what I'm doing. And so it's beneficial and it's really important. And I think everyone is an advocate for this. This is in addition to our competitive PTO policy. So, you know, we have definitely the time that we need to, you know, take time off, go on vacation, recover, spend time with your family. We also have volunteer days that we can use to kind of get out in our community and get into our city and do some work there. We have access to Headspace and Headspace Care, which I think, Britt, you brought up a really good point that, you know, making sure we have refreshers on our resources and what we offer is really important, because I think there's things that also I learned recently that I didn't even know we had. So I think that is a good point. And, you know, again, Headspace is really a great tool that we recently kind of had access to. We also have a wellness stipend through an app called June. This is fairly new for us, but essentially if you spend anything on health and wellness, which I think is pretty broad, you know, it can be anything from like a gym membership or, you know, a meal plan. I personally use it for my therapy sessions. And so I'm really grateful for that. That's something we can expense up to a certain amount. And then again, I think we have just like a really incredible flexible work schedule, or we go into the office one day a week on Tuesday. So we were there yesterday all together. So everyone comes and we have lunch catered for us. And so that's something we don't have to worry about. And we, you know, the day is all about kind of meeting with the right people, the right teams, collaborating, brainstorming. And then the other 4 days are remote and at home. And I truly appreciate that because, like, I think I mentioned this, maybe I didn't, but I have a dog and, you know, I want to be with her. I want to take a break and go for a walk with her. And so that really helps my mental health. And again, these are just a few things, but again, very grateful for everything we offer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that's really helpful for, you know, especially anyone in the HR benefits department in our audience today, just kind of like hearing what some of the options are if they're looking for ways to expand their mental health programs. I mean, from an individual standpoint, I find that even just scheduling a virtual coffee chat with one of my coworkers is a great way to, you know, just kind of like relieve some stress, like talk about your day. But it's also just a really great way to connect with people outside of your department. So, you know, in a lot of ways, those ways of communicating with your coworkers are also very helpful for, you know, making sure that everybody is on the same page and everyone's got the same goals within your organization. So roughly 4 in 5 respondents to our survey reported that it would help them to receive information or training about employer health insurance benefits for mental health treatment, signs of stress or burnout management, identifying and responding to a mental health crisis, and mental health conditions, signs and symptoms. So with that in mind, that people are looking for these trainings, they're looking for these benefits. Barb, could you talk about how employers can communicate what benefits employees do have available to them and how to access them?
Yeah, so I think too often companies share their resources during open enrollment, and then that's about it, once a year. And I think that may contribute to that finding that you mentioned, Britt, that only a quarter of employees know that they have access to mental, or if they have access to mental health care benefits. But we know that the access to mental health care benefits is essential to that creating the positive workplace culture. So people want to know how to access their resources. They want to hear from their company leadership. So what's a company to do? And as you said, Britt, communicate. Make your employees sick of hearing from you. One way is to find, hooks. So I think it's very simple. It's a little bit of a marketing tactic, is through an awareness calendar. So we put one together as NAMI Stigma Free every month, and we share those awareness days and weeks with accompanying resources and information, podcasts, blogs, things people can read just to learn a little bit more. So finding opportunities to share the company resources that you probably already have is so important. And so that could be through consistent email reminders. You can do flags at all hands meetings, trainings during onboardings, like Haley said, and all of that helps to get the message out that help is available if and when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another thing that I always say is even if you don't think that you need to access these benefits yourself because your mental health is fine, you may have a day where one of your coworkers comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm really struggling." And you're going to be very glad that you know your benefits well enough that you can refer them to your colleague. So we are down to our last couple minutes here. I'd really love to just have some final words from both you and Haley and Barb. Haley, so I think that one of the most exciting possible benefits, workplace mental health benefits possible, is the idea of just having a network of colleagues who are willing to talk about mental health with you. So I would love if you have any advice that you could share for employees who are looking to actually start a mental health advisory committee or some kind of ERG, employee resource group or network in their workplaces.
Yeah, of course. I feel like Ollie, we have a lot of ERGs. So I think it's like in our DNA, but I also want to say that I think leadership has to be a part of the change too, right? And I think this committee initially started from our VP of People and Culture and our head of technology kind of coming together and I don't know, once they founded it, and then I raised my hand to be involved, and then I raised my hand to be a co-lead with my partner. And so I think what I would advise or recommend is it all starts from like you said, Britt, like the conversations. And this committee, as I mentioned previously in a question, and in an answer, it was started from all of the people speaking up, right? And one-on-ones and family lunches that we have every month and meetings and, people just sharing what's bothering them, what's affecting them. And so I think that's the start, right? You have to have those conversations and raise your hand and then hope that, you can move things forward, and something like a committee could be started or a benefit could be accessed. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of our listeners, it's like sometimes, especially if you haven't really had a chance to communicate much with your coworkers. It may be hard to know like what you have in common, but you always have something in common with your coworkers, whether that's the fact that you're both caregivers, or even just like starting a book club, like anything that you can do to build those networks. It's going to have a really big effect on your mental health, and making sure that those doors are open for you and for your colleagues if you do end up having to have more serious conversations. So, Barb, maybe you could close us out with something that the people watching today can do to make a difference in their workplace's culture today.
So culture change is a really big challenge, and it seems like a really big challenge, and it can be, but there are ways to tackle it. I think some of the bigger shifts can be like creating an employee resource group or an advisory committee like Haley and her team, implementing those mental health trainings in the workplace, ensuring that your mental health coverage is equitable. And by that, I mean making it just as accessible to take care of your mental health as it is to take care of your physical health. But there are smaller steps too that individuals can take. As Haley said, leadership always sets the tone. So if a CEO or another leader is open about their mental health, and that doesn't have to be a mental health condition, it can just be, I'm not feeling that great. It really opens the door for others to talk to. So we actually heard recently from a CEO who shared with his employees and all staff that he used their EAP to get guidance on grief that he was experiencing. And after that, they looked at the data, and the EAP usage just shot up after that. It really does make a difference. But I think it's also little things too. And that can be learning inclusive language, which NAMI has many guides for that, to just mark yourself as a safe person to talk to. And that can be super, super powerful. And to share, one small thing that made a big difference to me was an old colleague of mine. He made his therapy appointments show up on his public Outlook calendar, not as doctor, not as appointment, but as therapy, which to me demonstrated that it was okay to take that time myself. So I just say that because I think we all have a role to play. We can all make a difference in creating a stigma-free workplace that ensures everyone gets the access to the support that they may need, which would create a healthier, more productive workplace in the end.
Thank you so much, Barb. And thank you, Haley, as well. This has been a fantastic discussion. Too short for me, but hopefully we've been able to pull some really great insights for y'all here today. NAMI is going to be hosting our next LinkedIn Live conversation about workplace mental health at the end of April. So do keep an eye on NAMI social media channels for updates. And to everyone who joined us, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We encourage you to read our full report, which dives a little bit deeper into that data we touched on today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or thoughts. We always love to hear from you. NAMI's stigma-free email is going to be in the chat, hopefully down there, I think. And most importantly, let this be the beginning of your workplace mental health conversation or encouragement to keep that conversation going. So whether it's starting small or implementing broader changes, together we can absolutely create the environments where everyone can thrive. So thank you again for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.